Hi friends, do you have a bicycle? Do you like bicycle riding? Or do you suggest riding alone or with friends? Today, let's learn a new chapter, A Bicycle in Good Repair, written by Jerome K. Jerome. He was an English writer and a humorist, best known for the comic travelogue Three Men in a Boat. He was born on 2nd May 1859, Kaldemar, United Kingdom, and died in 1927. His notable works are Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow and Second Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, Three Men on the Bummel as sequel to Three Men in a Boat, and several other novels. This is also a humorous story, A Bicycle in Good Repair. All of us know the common man's car is a bicycle, as it is the cheapest mode of conveyance and transport, but it needs to be kept in proper working order. The bicycle ride is enjoyable only if it is in a good condition. One should get it thoroughly overhauled by an expert mechanic, but the boy in the story experienced a mechanic who knew nothing and screwed up all. The child in this chapter hesitated initially and regretted it later. He hesitated to say no to his friend. The humor is scattered all around in their activities and conversation. You would burst with laughter while reading the lesson. Let's get into the story, A Bicycle in Good Repair. A man I knew proposed one evening we should go for a long bicycle ride together on the following day, and I agreed. I got up early. For me, I made an effort and was pleased with myself. He came half an hour late. I was waiting for him in the garden. It was a lovely day. He said, "That's a good-looking machine of yours. How does it run?" "Oh, like most of them," I answered. "Easily enough in the morning, goes a little stiffy after lunch." He caught hold of it by the front wheel and the fork and shook it violently. I said, "Don't do that, you will hurt it." I didn't see why he should shake it. It had not done anything to him. Besides, if it wanted shaking, I was the proper person to shake it. I felt much as I should had. He started whacking my dog. Whacking means beating or striking. Okay. The narrator one evening accepted his friend's proposal to go for a long bicycle ride on the following day. He got up early and started waiting for his friend. He came half an hour late. He examined the narrator's bicycle and asked, "How did it run?" The narrator answered, like most of the other bicycles, easily enough in the morning and a little stiffy after lunch. His friend shook the front wheel with force. If your friend shake your bicycle violently, what will be your reaction? Definitely you will scold your friend, isn't it? The narrator thought, why did he shake it? Whether his bicycle had done anything to him. Moreover, if it wanted shaking, he thought he was the proper person to shake it. And also he felt that he had started beating his dog. Let's see, what are they doing? He said, "This front wheel wobbles." Wobbles means move unsteadily from side to side. I said it doesn't if you don't wobble it. It didn't wobble. As a matter of fact, nothing worth calling a wobble. He said, "This is dangerous. Have you got a hammer?" I ought to have been firm, but I thought that perhaps he really did know something about the business. I went to the tool shed to see what I could find. When I came back, he was sitting on the ground with the front wheel between his legs. He was playing with it, twiddling it round between his fingers. Twiddling, that means turning. The remnant means remaining parts. Remnant of the machine was lying on the gravel path beside him. He said, "It looks to me as if the bearings were all wrong." I said, "Don't you trouble about it anymore. You will make yourself tired. Let us put it back and get off." It sounds funny. The friend declared that the front wheel wobbles. That means it was unsteady. The narrator had to be strong and said no, but he thought that whether his friend knew something about the bicycle repairing. The narrator went to the tool shed to find out the hammer when his friend asked for hammer. When he came back, his friend was sitting on the ground with the front wheel between his legs. He was playing with it, turning it round between his fingers. The remaining parts of the machine was lying on the ground beside him. He found fault with the bearings. What are the bearings? See the picture. The narrator might be angry, but he didn't show to him and want him not to trouble it, and that would make himself tired. The narrator wanted to put it back and get off. See the next paragraphs. He said, "We may as well see what is the matter with it. Now it is out." He talked as though it had dropped out by accident. Before I could stop him, he had unscrewed something somewhere, and out rolled all over the path some dozen or so little balls. "Catch them!" he shouted. "Catch them! We mustn't lose any of them." He was quite excited about them. We grovelled, that means crawled on the ground, for half an hour and found 16. He said he hoped we had got them all, because if not, it would make a serious difference to the machine. I put them for safety in my hat. It was not a sensible thing to do, I admit. See, his friend set about repairing the machine. He unscrewed it, and the little iron balls rolled away. He shouted at the narrator for catching them. He seemed exciting. Both of them crawled on the ground and collected 16 of them. He was not sure that was 16. If they couldn't find all, that would make a serious difference to the machine. They cannot ride it. Anyway, he put them for safety in his hat, although it was not safe. Okay, let's get into the second part of the story. He then said that while he was about it, he would see to the chain for me, and at once began taking off the gear case. I did try to dissuade him. Dissuade means persuade not to take a particular action. From that, I told him what an experienced friend of mine once said to me solemnly. Solemnly means in a dignified manner. If anything goes wrong with your gear case, sell the machine and buy a new one. It comes cheaper. He said people talk like that who understand nothing about machines. Nothing is easier than taking off a gear case. I had to confess he was right. In less than 5 minutes, he had the gear case in 2 pieces. Lying on the path and was grovelling for screws. He said it was always a mystery to him the way screws disappeared. See, the friend handled the chain. He started to take off the gear case. The narrator tried to dissuade him by telling him he had heard by one of his experienced friends, if anything goes wrong with the gear case of a bicycle, then it is cheaper to sell the bicycle than set about repairing the damaged gear case. The friend doesn't take it seriously and continues to take off the gear case. He said those who talk like that didn't understand anything about a machine. According to him, nothing was easier than taking off a gear case. The narrator notes with sarcasm that his friend was right. In less than 5 minutes, he made the gear case into 2 pieces lying on the path. He grovelled for screws by telling disappearing screws was a mystery to him. Let's continue. I know your interest is raised. Common sense continued to whisper to me, "Stop him before he does any more mischief. You have a right to protect your own property from the ravages of a lunatic." Ravages, that means damages. Lunatic, that means mad person. Take him by the scruff of the neck and kick him out of the gate. But I am weak when it comes to hurting other people's feelings, and I let him muddle on, mix up things. He gave up looking for the rest of the screws. He said screws had a knack of turning up when you least expected them, and that now he would see to the chain. He tightened it till it wouldn't move. Next he loosened it until it was twice as loose as it was before. Then he said we had better think about getting the front wheel back into its place again. The narrator was too weak to check the front from doing further mischief. His sense asked him to stop his friend before doing more mischief, because he had a right to protect his own property from a mad person. His sense also told him to take his neck and kick him out of the gate, but he couldn't do it because he is the person who cannot hurt others' feelings. The friend went ahead, He tightened the chain till it wouldn't move. Then he made it very loose. He finally decided to fix the front wheel in place. Let's see. I held the fork open and he worried with the wheel. At the end of 10 minutes, I suggested he should hold the fork and that I should handle the wheel, and we changed places. At length we did get the thing into position, and the moment it was in position he burst out laughing. I said, "What's a joke?" He said, "Well, I'm an ass." It was the first thing he had said that made me respect him. I asked him what had led him to the discovery. He said, "We have forgotten the balls." I looked for my hat. It was lying topsy-turvy, that means upside down, in the middle of the path. He was of a cheerful disposition. He said, "Well, we must put back all we can find and trust to Providence." See, the narrator changed place with him and put the wheel in tight position. His friend laughed and admitted that he was an ass. The reason was that they had forgotten to put the iron balls in place. The narrator thought that was the first thing his friend had said that made him respect. He felt respect to him because he said he was an ass. The narrator looked for his hat in which he had put the ball safely. His friend was in full swing and asked him to find out the balls. But the hat lay upturned and the balls were scattered. See the next paragraph. We found 11. We fixed 6 on one side and 5 on the other, and half an hour later the wheel was in its place again. It needs hardly be added that it really did wobble now. The child might have noticed it. He said it would do for the present. I said, "Watching you do this is of real use to me. It is not only your skill that fascinates me, it's your cheery confidence in yourself, your inexplicable hopefulness." Inexplicable means that can't be explained, mysterious, that does me good. Thus encouraged, he set to work to refix the gear case. He stood the bicycle against the house and worked from the offside. Then he stood it against a tree and worked from the onside. Then I held it for him while he lay on the ground with his head between the wheels and worked at it from below and dropped oil upon himself. Then he took it away from me and doubled himself across it till he lost his balance and slid over onto his head. See, they could find only 11. They fixed 6, balls. They fixed 6 on one side and 5 on the other, and half an hour later the wheel was put in its place again. But it wobbled even then. The narrator was impressed not so much by his friend's skill at repairing the bicycle as by his confidence in himself and his hopeful attitude. Thus his friend got encouraged. He then set to refix the gearbox. He put the bicycle in different places and positions for the job. He lost his balance and hurt himself on the head. See the next paragraph. Then he lost his temper and tried bullying the thing. Bullying, that means scolding, blaming. The bicycle, I was glad to see, showed spirit, and the subsequent proceedings degenerated into, that means were reduced to, little else than a rough and tumble fight between him and the machine. One moment the bicycle would be on the gravel path and he on top of it. The next the position would be reversed, he on the gravel path, the bicycle on him. Now he would be standing flushed with victory, the bicycle firmly fixed between his legs. But his triumph would be short-lived. By a sudden quick movement, it would free itself and turning upon him, hit him sharply over the head with one of its handles. When the author's friend doubled himself across the bicycle till he lost his balance and slid over onto his friend, then he lost his temper and tried bullying it. The bicycle showed spirit and there ensued a fight between him and the machine. One moment the bicycle was on the gravel path and he on top of it. The next moment the position was reversed. He became happy with his victory after the bicycle was firmly fixed between his legs. However, his victory was short-lived. By a sudden quick movement, the bicycle freed itself and hit him sharply over the head with one of its handles by turning upon him. At 1:15, dirty and disheveled means disordered, cut and bleeding, he said, "I think that will do," and rose and wiped his brow. The bicycle looked as if it also had had enough of it, which had received most punishment. It would have been difficult to say. I took him into the back kitchen where, so far as was possible, he cleaned himself. Then I sent him home. What happened? At 1:15, the man thought that the work was done. Disheartened and disappointed for his failed effort, he finally gave up at 1:15. He himself was dirty and bleeding. He cleaned himself, and the narrator then sent him to home. It was difficult for him to decide who had suffered more, the friend or the bicycle. What's your opinion? The severe punishment of knave technicians and the severe blow was to the boy who planned for a morning ride. The man messed up everything. My dear children, do you have a friend like him? Okay, if you have a friend like him, please do a bicycle riding and tell me about your experience. Okay, if you have any such experience, please share in your class and enjoy. Hope all of you have enjoyed our today's class and this lesson, this humorous chapter written by Jerome K. Jerome. See you again. See you in the next class. Thank you.